welcome back to our podcast. We are your Enchanted Educators. I'm Natalie.
I'm Adriana.
Welcome back. As you can see, we're still dressed in our same best as the last episode. It's because we knew that we had a lot of content with this particular topic and we wanted to break it up into two without it being overwhelming. And we just saw that with the content, it was better to go ahead and break it up into two different groups.
Hi, this is Adriana, one of your Enchanted Educators. I want to apologize for all the sounds you might hear in this video, such as people talking, doors closing, or clinking noises. The building we used was a public building. Didn't know that the microphone was going to pick up the different sounds in the room. We continue to find new ways to record and new ways to limit distractions. On that note, let's get back to the podcast and hope you enjoy. So this is part 2.
But we still have another icebreaker.
What is this icebreaker?
I'll read this one. What is the best and worst infant room you worked in or visited?
So starting with, do I want to say worst or want to say best? The worst was actually, I don't know, being a sub, like you go to so many different schools, like you see so many different things. So, but I would say possibly the school that I talked about in the last episode. So if you did not listen to that podcast, go back to that one and you'll hear a little bit more about that school. But this school was interesting because of their nap rooms. They didn't really have a nap room. The children laid on the floors. There wasn't really space between walkers and crawlers. Like, they had a divided room, but it was very difficult because a lot of the babies need more of a secluded area like a nap room. Well, all babies, they sleep at different times. Sometimes the toddlers, they're having their playtime or we're doing art with them, and it's not quite enough for the infants. So I feel like they need a more of a secluded area to be in. There wasn't that space, I felt. It was just like a big room and all it was blocked off by was a little gate. And I was like, oh, this is kind of cool, but then at the same time it wasn't, I didn't really like it for both age groups. And a lot of times we were just thrown outside. A lot of times the kids, right when they would wake up, go outside, and things like that. It was a little bit different than a lot of centers I've been at. The best center that I was at, I can't say the name, but the room was just so clean. Everything was really organized. They had their separate nap room, and this is not the infants, they're older infants, toddlers, but they had their separate nap room, which I loved, which was nice because a lot of times when we're finishing up lunchtime and they're getting ready to go to the nap room, none of the toys were a distraction. They knew that it was time for a nap and they knew their routine and things like that. It was easier to just kind of guide them through that. And if the tables are still dirty, then it's we can get the children in there, start putting them to sleep, and then clean it after. Or I can be in the nap room putting them to sleep and my assistant will be cleaning, which was very nice because you don't see that in a lot of places sometimes. Right. A lot of times the room is in the room, they put out the beds right by the tables and things like that. So that is my best and worst.
For me, I would say I'm gonna go with the worst. The worst was really strange, where the play area divided nap area with posts, but they were metal posts and then with clear windows, and then it also had tiled floors, and they put just very thin mats on top, so the children were literally getting hurt all the time. There was no soft spot. When you think of an infant class, you should see lots of soft cushioning spaces.
So the whole floor was tile.
The whole floor was
Oh.
tile.
Because I don't like that. Like, I get where, like, they eat.
Mm-hmm.
So, because then if the food falls, then it's easier to clean up, things like
Yeah.
that. But where they play
Yeah.
should be more, like, carpet and cushion.
Exactly.
Even
there should
with
be
carpet
and
and
then
cushion.
cushion on top or a blanket. Yes. That would be ideal. But
Yes.
no, at this one, there was a lot of metal and a lot of tile. So it was very hard to work. And actually, if you saw the last podcast, I was actually talking about that one too, where they were over ratio and licensing finally got on their case about a lot of stuff afterward. I was only there for 6 months, just long enough to get my infant hours, and then I was like, peace. I learned a lot of what not to do in those 6 months. And you know what? Sometimes that hands-on learning really does help, because there would be questions later on in the next 10 years or so, and I've noticed that I was like, I knew the answer because of that experience. Those 6 months kind of like launched me into what not to do. And then I was able to see what should be done later on. But the best, I like to call it the room with the view. It was on the hills in a really nice area.
I was gonna guess the city, but then I was like, I don't know if I should do that.
I know, I almost said it.
I know, I was like, oh.
But anyway, it's in a very pretty area. Even when I worked with the preschools, it was nice because we would be able to take nature walks, and one time we saw like little bunnies around there.
I have 2 guesses.
Same city as the church.
That's what I thought.
And for those of you who don't know, we used to work together in an infant, toddler. It was toddler in a toddler class, teaching Sunday school at a church.
Yeah.
But yes, it was in the same city, and they had this little itty bitty window there that was at their space, so the kids can crawl up to it and they would look out, and they just looked so happy to be able to see, because it was a pretty city view. Nice. And then you can also see the mountains across the way, because it was looking north towards the foothills, which is kind of silly because right now we're like up against the foothills in the city that we're at now. Mm-hmm. But yes, it had a beautiful view on a clear day, and it was really nice to be able to have the kids there and incorporate the nature of it, because a lot of the schools that I've worked at don't really include nature with the infants too much. And it was a soft environment. It was a neat setup because they had like the changing tables in between the infant class and the toddler class, and then they had a kitchen which was also between the infant class and then the toddler class. And then up in the front there was the cubbies for both, and that's how the class was divided, but we were never fully separated. It was a convenient setup, and it made it nice for the teacher to be able to include lots of different things, and everything was right there, because a lot of times the kitchen's like in 3 doors down or across another classroom. Or another thing is that the diapers, when they were ready to be tossed, the trash was outside, because there was a little back door right behind to where you can be standing right here with the child and then just push and then dispose, and it'd be outside. That's the only school I had that kind of thing go. So it smelled fresh in that classroom. It was just a really well thought out design. That was the best, and I said my worst. Infant environments.
This is always interesting because have you having to take a class in environments? I had to take a class in college, and we talked about how a classroom should be laid out according to their age. So this is something that like I was very familiar with. So whenever I was in a classroom, and specifically for infants, I would be like, oh, I like this. This is great. This should not be right here. That should be worked on, and things like that. But it's crazy how at sites I've been to, they don't know this. I don't know if it is new to have one of these classes, but a lot of the teachers, they would ask me. They would be like, what, this and that, and I'll be like, oh, this shouldn't be right there. And they're like, what, really? Like, I was the one that was supporting. Even at the school that I'm at right now, a lot of times the lead asks me like, "Oh, what do you think about this?" and stuff like that.
That's very interesting because the class that you're talking about, I remember when I was taking it, and it was when I was still at Citrus College. It was going with the itters and the eckers. And if you don't know about those, but that is an environment rating scale for infants and toddlers, and then the other one is for preschool. And they do have others for family child care centers. That one's called Becker's. I've been trained in all three of those. And then they have some that are higher up for elementary schools
Sackers.
as well.
I'm familiar with that one because I actually had to do that one for the school age classroom last year.
Okay. Great. So yes, there's a lot of them, and they really do align. Once you've seen one, you can kind of get the gist and know what they're like. But it is a great tool. If you are opening up a child care center, you really want to make sure that you have that checklist, like how many books to put in the library and what type of books, making sure you have the correct variety for diversity. Although I don't know, am I still allowed to say diversity these days?
Yeah, I don't know.
It's kind of controversial right now, which is mind-boggling. So sorry if I'm offending anybody by saying that word.
Yeah.
But you do want to have a variety to support all children.
And variety, what we mean is social emotional books, real books, like real people, seeing real pictures, fiction books, like storytelling and like
Science. You want to make sure that there are some with math concepts in there.
I'm trying to think of like the stories that I see, like Little Red Riding Hood. Mm-hmm. That would be like
the nursery rhymes.
Nursery rhymes.
And it's sad because I see them fading out, but they're really something that should be seen.
Yeah.
And even finger plays. I feel like a lot of people are shying away from finger play songs, and that's.
And you know what's really hard is because I'm in a preschool classroom. I know we're talking about infants, but in the preschool classroom, even my toddlers, when I had them, they were not engaged when I would read a story or I would try to do the finger play. They were more engaged of like they wanted to see the tablet.
See, and this is where electronics is really minimizing the attention span of children, and that's across the board, from infants all the way up to junior high, I would say. And even with some adults, I'm starting to see that people who are used to seeing like TikTok videos, they can't watch a full movie anymore. It's too long for them. And it's kind of sad to see that we're getting programmed for quick gratification, or we just want to know the ending like this. We don't want to see the whole story.
Yeah.
And that's definitely a side effect of technology. So parents, if you have young children, you really want to make sure that you're limiting that tablet time and don't let them take the phones that much. I know it's convenient. I know that it distracts them, but it is altering their brain. And we can get into that on a whole nother podcast. But that is one thing when we're thinking about the infant environments, it's not appropriate to have any kind of tablet or computer device in there. You can put in like something where it switches on and then they compress things and they're working on cause and effect for it to make sounds and light up. That's okay, because that's sensory stimulating. But to have them just stare at a screen is not appropriate.
Yeah.
Thank you for bringing that up, because that is something that we really should be talking about. Inside environment, like we said earlier, we want to make sure that it's soft. Children that are as young as infants, it's inevitable that they're going to fall.
They're learning. They're learning to crawl.
Yes.
They're gonna slip. I see so many, like when they're learning to crawl and they slip. But if they have a cushion, they just fall on the cushion, But if it's a hardwood floor, tile.
Yes. Then you're just asking to write ouch reports.
Yes.
And I've been there where I'm like, oh God, how many am I going to write today? Because there's metal and there's tile. This is not an infant room.
Yeah.
yeah, for infants, you really need to have different levels because you want them to have those challenges. You want them to be able to start crawling up the stairs or working their way, holding the handle and cruising up the stairs. Those are all really good gross motor skills for them that they need to work on. So we have to set an environment where it's safe for them to build on those skills, and we as educators can encourage them to do it. And we know that it'll happen safely. That's the key part, is making sure that it's safe. There's one preschool when I went in, they had laminate floors, which, I mean, it's not too hard, but it's not exactly soft. And they had their little rugs. They would just kind of put out little rugs and blankets. Well, the thing with the blanket is when you're crawling on a blanket, what happens? It starts crunching up. And you're moving with the blanket. And then if there's another child trying to stand up and one child's crawling, the child crawling is pulling the blanket and the child standing up is going to fall. So it's not always the best approach. And I had mentioned this to my director, and then we were able to get one of those cushioned mats. And that was a game changer, is to be able to have that, because with all of these infants that were moving around, they weren't interrupting each other's activities anymore. They weren't pulling the blanket as they moved. It was a little harder to clean though. Because we had to wipe it down and then roll it up and put it in the corner so that the cleaning people can mop the floor at the end of the day. But all in all, we didn't mind having to do those extra steps because it was better for the children in the long run. And we got to kind of find that balance as teachers and how the routine is going to flow, and is it really best for the children. And actually, I have a story about that. One time I was a closer, and this was an old building, and it actually was attached to a hospital. So apparently, before it became a preschool, it used to be a area for children who had special needs. And people would say periodically that they saw ghosts.
Oh, wow.
And I never really experienced it until one day when I was cleaning and everybody was gone. I was just on picture Cinderella cleaning the floors. I was cleaning the mat, and there's this gate that's between two sides. It was kind of a cool infant room because we had like this little space right here where we had one room that way, one over here, and then two nap rooms in the corner. But anyway, there's a gate right here that divides the two sides. I'm on the floor cleaning, and all of a sudden I hear 3 times. And I look, and I'm like, okay, there's nobody with me. And I see that the gate that I had left open all of a sudden is like clinking, it's closing, and it closed 3 times. It freaked me out. I finished cleaning so fast. And then I'm like, okay, I'm ready to just end my day. There's one other time where I was in the nap room with one of the babies, and another teacher from another class was doing a buggy ride just in this little like open area of the school. And then she saw me get up when the baby got up to pick up the baby, and she goes, how'd you get over here? You were just over there. I'm like, no, that side of the room had been closed for a while. And she goes, no, I just saw you over there. I'm like, no, it's just me, and I've been in here in the nap room with the baby. That was freaky. I'm like, I don't know who she saw, but it wasn't me. Yeah, I've heard a few other stories too, but those are the only 2 that happened with me.
That's scary.
But, okay, so inside environments, we want to make sure that the toys are age appropriate. Especially with infants, you want to make sure that
Soft
they
toys.
are soft plush toys, but it's also like not gonna come off very easily, so it won't choke them, because it probably will be mouthed at some point. A lot of times they have like little rubber parts on the edges so that they can feel the softness but kind of chew on the rubber area.
No small pieces.
No.
I think at the center, one of the centers I was at, they had like a little thing where you could test how
Yes.
small it is.
They do. It's a little plastic thing, kind of like this, a little bit shorter, but it's the circumference of a toilet paper roll. If you don't have the plastic thing, you want to use a toilet paper roll. And an easy way to do is just put it through the toilet paper roll, and if it goes through,
Too small.
yeah, it's too small. But if it stops, then it's okay and safe for the baby to have.
Yeah.
But those little plastic pieces that are the tester, it's probably only like $8 or $10 the last time I checked. And it is good to have, even for parents. It's always nice to have, just because sometimes you don't know with things lying around your house
Yeah.
if it's safe for the child, because they're quick and they can just pick it up and put it in their mouth really fast.
And if you're nervous about any toys, I would say just monitor the toy that they're playing with while they're using it.
Children should never be playing in a room unattended.
Yes.
And we know as educators, if it's too quiet and we haven't heard from a certain child, they're probably getting into something they're not supposed to.
Yeah. I know. The other day I was like having all the children, were gathering them so we can do like the Easter egg hunt. And one of the kids, he's over there in the art area, and I was like, oh, like he's drawing. And I kept saying him like get like crayons and stuff from the bucket. And next thing you know, when I'm gathering all the children, our sub, she was like, he's painting on the furniture. And I was like,
Oh, dear Lord.
oh, that's wonderful.
Oh, isn't that great?
But literally, sometimes that happens so quickly. You could have just checked on them like just a second ago,
Oh, yeah.
and that happens.
For sure. They know what they can get away with and when. They are watching us just as much as we are watching them.
Yeah.
And they know what teacher they can get away with.
Yeah.
Things. There were some times where I didn't want to leave
That
for
is
my
very
break
true.
because I'm like, no, they're content. I don't want to come back to chaos.
Yeah, like subs for sure. Like the kids know to get away. Like we have certain times, like when we eat. And there's this little girl, she knows, like I was already leaving for the day, and she's asking the teacher, can I eat my chips? And I'm like, girl, we already had snack. But I already know she's over here trying to finesse her. But I know they have a later snack, and it was already coming up. So I was like, I already know this girl's over here trying to finesse her, because she knows, because I was like, what does she say? And she's over here looking at me like, because she knows.
Oh,
And-
yeah.
And I always tell the subs, don't let them tell you this, because they're going to tell you this. But this is our schedule, and this is what we do.
Yes, and especially true in the infant rooms because they do get very attached to their caregivers and they are looking at our faces a lot. When subs come in to give us our lunch or our break,
Oh,
it's
yeah.
hard for them. They start crying.
They're like, no,
they don't want
where are you going?
Don't leave me. Then sometimes
You're abandoning me.
yeah, sometimes it's like the same reaction as when the parent leaves in the morning.
Yeah.
They get really close to their caregivers. That's another thing you want to think of with infant rooms is you want it to be a relatively low ratio because if there's too many people coming in and out, that is hard on them. If they have a regular steady flow of specific faces that they see every day and they seem to be more secure and trusting in their environment.
Yeah, a lot of times, or certain schools I've been to, there was always like a specific floater that they would go in and they would give people breaks. They wouldn't switch that up, which I liked because as an infant, you can't be giving like the infant teachers a different teacher because then the babies see a different teacher. But if that same teacher comes in to give them a break, they probably won't be that anxious because they're like, oh, okay, I know you know.
Yeah.
But when it's someone different, which I've seen that as well, when there's always someone different, and that is just too hard for the infants.
It is. It's
too
a lot
hard.
on them. You're just asking for crying all day
Yeah.
because they're insecure. They don't know who to attach to. They don't understand what's going on. They don't know why there's so much change. It fatigues them. And infants are very sensitive to things. I think we're going to get into that in another slide. But you want to make sure that it is set for their different developments. Like I mentioned earlier, one of the infant rooms that I had, it was divided to where we had the non-mobile on one side and then we can have the mobile on the other side. Even though we had 12 infants in there, we were able to divide it 6 and 6 so that it wasn't too overwhelming. Because if you have 12 infants and you have some that are walkers and some that are barely crawlers, they're going to be tripping over each other. And it's not going to be a happy class. The children are going to be upset. They're going to be crowded. They need space to explore.
Yeah.
So that's something that we need to be very mindful about when we're setting up our environment. Are we supporting all of their developments and making sure that they can move freely without other children getting in their way? Because once those little kids start to walk, it's not long before they realize how to run, and they are just trampling over everything in their path.
Yeah.
And that's hard if you have one child that's just barely starting to like turn to the side.
Oh, yeah.
And a child's running after them. They're basically a sitting duck because all they know how to do is roll.
Yeah.
So yes, we want to make sure that we have the space arranged for mobile and non-mobile infants.
Oh, yeah. So in one of my classrooms, well, my classroom was there 1.5. So I enjoyed having my children with my children and not with the ones that were crawling. Because when my kids, because they started running, they started learning to run, and they were pretty good like with walking and things like that. When they were running with these children that were like, they didn't know how to roll over, or they're barely learning how to crawl, it was no good. Like, I try to eliminate being together, but sometimes when we were short staffed, we had to be together, and I did not like that. It was just not safe for the children, and I did not like that at all.
Yes, exactly. Because it stresses out the teachers, but it's also not safe for the children when it's set up that way.
It probably gives the babies anxiety too. Like, they're probably like anxious, like, oh my gosh, this other one's gonna fall on me.
So I did want to share a little bit about some groundbreaking research that I've discovered recently, and it just was one of those aha moments for me where I'm like, yes, thank you, this is amazing. Dr. Catherine Murray noticed the brain set theory, which is research data that kind of goes with Maslow's pyramid hierarchy needs. It really sets with that, but it also just kind of integrates what we've always been kind of trying to say about infant care as educators, what we need in those rooms that we're working with, because it's talking about the survival part of the brain, the emotional part, and the thinking part. So the survival is at the base, and then there's the emotional, and then the prefrontal cortex up here is the thinking part of the brain. And we could always get into that on another podcast. We won't go too deep into the science, but we know that when children and even adults are thinking through their prefrontal cortex and they're not interrupted with the other parts of the brain, that's where higher levels of learning can take place and cognitive concepts can be rebuilt and practiced. The way that they had this environment concept was making sure that the lighting is low for the children, because then they don't feel like they need to flee. If you are looking at a fluorescent light and staring at it for a really long time, you're actually going to start to feel a headache, and you're going to want to move, you're going to want to switch, you're going to want to hide. So that kind of enacts the survival skills of, fight or flight, because you're not comfortable in that environment. So that's basically the concept they're getting at. And they were also saying with like the sounds, infants can't be where there's construction going on next door, or maybe next to a train that's going to be rattling the environment, and it feels like an earthquake every other hour. That wouldn't be ideal for infants. So it's thinking about things like that when you are designing in infant care and wanting them to be secure in their area. Emotional is making them feel welcome. Are there pictures of them with their family in the environment? Because they should be able to see that. And are the pictures low to their level, or are they having to look up here, and that can hurt their neck if they're trying to look at it. So putting things down at their level, things like that. I don't have it right in front of me, and I don't want to go too deep into it, but I did do a complete presentation on that from a webinar training that I received, so that my partners can know about it. And so if you want to check that out on Patreon, it will be uploaded on it soon. And if you have any more questions, I could go deeper into that. It could be a podcast all on its own. Maybe we will. I did want to introduce it to you because I just was very moved with it and thought, yes, yes, yes. I'm so glad somebody put these together.
We see that infant interactions are super important. And what I see that sometimes teachers might not see that as so important, and they struggle to have interactions. And what I hear from parents or even teachers is sometimes like, what do we even do with them? How do we even, they're just there. But there's so much that infants are learning that we have to help them with their development to continue that development. And that is something that we're going to speak on in this podcast, of different things that you can do at home and what we do at school, or what you can implement at your school.
Part of that is supporting like the motor development and understanding what's expected at their age. One of the best ways to know this is through ages and stages,
Yes.
also known as ASQ. They really break it down by about every 2 months. Some of them are more every 6 months, but in between that range, to show what the developments are in different areas, including gross motor, social emotional, language, communication, and interpersonal relations.
And I really like those because at the site that I'm at, I really focus on the ASQs, and I really like those because it shows what the children are excelling in or what they need more support in. So that helps me know, okay, this child needs more help on their fine motor skills. I need to support them by providing activities with their fine motor skills. And this helps me to talk with the parents on what they can do at home. So it's not just at school, but it's at home as well.
Yes, and it is research-based, so it's a nice way to bring up certain concerns and say, we're noticing this pattern, and then if they see it on the ASQ, usually that's done by the parent, and so that shows that the parent's noticing this pattern. So then we can go into that deeper conversation of why are we seeing these differences, and if that's not a milestone for the child at that age, then we might want to look at that and be like, why is the child not reaching the level that's expected? And we can provide resources or maybe support with early interventions. Sometimes if a child is not seen and they have glasses just for a year, then it gets corrected really quickly, and then for the rest of their life their eyesight is doing well. Something simple like that, or even with speech delays, when they start to have like little slurs when they're 2 years old, it can be corrected very quickly, and then they know how to enunciate and pronounce the words the correct way. But when they are young, it is so much easier for them to correct because they haven't fully developed these bad habits or habits that are holding them back. So if there's ways that we can develop a strategy to support them earlier, that is best practice for them.
Yeah, let us know if you want more support on that, more information on that. If you want that information, and we can help and support you guys. If you're like, I have an infant and I don't know what to do, I don't know if they're behind, we can possibly provide you with those resources, and then we can talk to you more about that. So let us know.
Yes, and you never know, we might have a specialist come on and explain a little more too if we see that there is a need for that, because we do know some.
Motor skills. what are some motor skills? Because I know they're probably gonna ask, what are motor skills? And I always hear even parents are like, what is that?
Well, it kind of starts with the reflex for infants, where they're just kind of like, ooh, they feel like their shoulders will go up or their hands will just, if somebody puts something here, it's kind of a natural reaction for them to curl their fingers. That's a reflex. If they're not curling when you put your finger there, then that's kind of a warning sign that maybe they're having low fine motor control in their fingers, and maybe there needs to be some exercises of like rubbing their fingers or holding their hands more. You never know, there could be something to support that. That's like the earliest type of motor development. But then we're also going into full fine motor where they're grasping for things, they're reaching for things, their arms are extended, and they're not just holding here or keeping here the whole time. They do usually want to move their body out, and then that's how they're going to start to be able to eventually roll once they're starting to reach, begin to balance a little bit. So that's going into gross motor, where their larger muscles are engaged and moving around. Often they're kicking. It's good to put babies in different positions, and I want to mention tummy time is key. A lot of people don't want to, because when you first put that baby on there and they're on the pillow, it's awkward and they don't know what to do. So what are they gonna do?
Cry.
They're gonna cry. Do not pick them up. You can make sure that they're propped and put toys in front for them to want to reach, because it's so engaging for them. It's good for their arms, but more importantly, they're building their core by doing that. And that is the center of their entire body. If you want them to be rolling, and you want them to be crawling, and you want them to be walking on time, they have to build that core. And if they're not getting adequate tummy time, there can be delays.
Yeah. So I would say, even if you don't like it, let it be, like, give them 30 seconds, a minute, and just keep building off on it. Obviously, you're not going to start off and be like, do like 5 minutes. And it depends on the child, your child, how long can this baby last. Maybe some of them like it and they're okay with this. So you might want them to be a little bit longer, but some just start screaming from the beginning. So give them a little bit of time. But don't force it on them as well.
Right. And another thing you could do too to kind of gradually do it is if you sit crisscross and you have a baby just kind of propped over your leg, sometimes they're a little more secure because they're closer to you, and then you can have toys on the side for them. That's one way you can get them started on tummy time. Besides the physical development as benefits, it's also really hard on the baby's head and hair growth, and even the shape of the head to develop correctly if they are constantly laying on their back. Sometimes it pushes on the skull a little bit, and it doesn't actually form the correct way. I forgot what that plate in the middle is called. Do you remember what that is? But there is one where when the baby first comes out of the canal, like the first few months, their head is shaping. So you want to make sure that they are in different positions and they're not getting stiff. And you want to make sure that their head is not getting loss of hair, or sometimes it gets some like flakes because of the heat of their body being in one position the whole time. So making sure that they're feeling comfortable in their environment. So just looking at the babies and making sure that they are in different positions, because it's good for them to be in different positions. You can hold them, you can have them leaning over. You want them to be comfortable with moving around their environment and not just staying in one spot. Boppies are great for helping. You know, they kind of look like a horseshoe type of pillow. Those help a lot. But making sure that there's toys there for them to engage in. The worst thing for a baby is just to be sitting there zoning out. And that's why a lot of the swings are no longer allowed in the infant environments, because for a long time they would just have them in there, and they would be literally just kind of zoning out because it would be a soothing sensation and they're just sitting there swinging, but there's no learning going on. So now that's not allowed. And if you see that in a daycare, that's a red flag.
Oh no.
That's very old school. Also, no walkers, because you want them to build their muscles. When they're in the walkers, they're relying on this contraption instead of building the actual muscles. They got to work for it.
Yeah.
And we want to make sure that we're supporting them. If they want to naturally stand up, help them, encourage them to do that. If they have the inclination to do it, encourage them to do it, because their body needs those movements. And a lot of times people want to have them just sit down. They're like, no, sit, because they're worried about safety. But that's why you make sure that you have your environment safe.
Yeah.
With lots of padding and cushion.
Yeah.
So another thing that goes with the ages and stages that we were talking about is understanding temperament. There are certain children where they're just going to be challenging because that's who they are. They're not going to accept what you say at the moment. They're going to say why when they get older. But you start seeing this attitude build even when they're infants. There's certain children that are just going to be like, they're going to look at you like, no, that's not what I want to do. I have my own body, I have my own mind, and I'm going to go the opposite way. Yeah. And that you see that pattern as they get older too, as you work with them for a couple years or even more. You start to see that, yeah, this temperament stays with them. Mm-hmm. And there are some that are easy, go with the flow, and they're like, okay, yeah, you want me to come here, I'll come here.
Yeah.
You smile at me, I'll smile at you. Yeah. Well, there's others where they're just like, they're gonna have the angry penguin face just because they want to have an angry penguin face. You do get to see a lot of their personalities, but understanding what those temperaments are will help you adapt your approach to them. Mm-hmm. Because some of them are more strong-willed and others are not as strong-willed. And you learn to work with all different types of temperaments, the difficult ones, the easygoing ones, and the slow to warm up ones as well. You know, sometimes it could be as easy as you're gonna dim the lights before nap time type of thing. And that's gonna help the slow to warm up child realize, okay, now it's time for me to wind down in a toddler room, when they would usually have a little bit more energy after lunch.
I had a child, she's more of a slow to warm up child, and that was pretty difficult because she's barely, I think she started last year, probably around September maybe. But she's barely this year, the beginning of this year, she's starting to warm up. And that's the thing about children, we don't know how long they're gonna take. Some of them take a long time, some of them are faster than others, but she will just have this like nervous body language, and she never wanted to join the group when we were doing large group or anything like that. I was like, come on, let's join. And she's like, And I felt like so bad, and I was trying to get her to feel more comfortable. I was like, let's go play, let's do this. But now she seems like she's coming out of more of her shell, which is good. So now she's dancing with us, but she wants to be everywhere because now she's experiencing the classroom finally. She's like, I want to be here, can I go there? And all of a sudden we're like, yes. We're like enjoying that she's enjoying that, but sometimes it's very hard because we're in another stage of what we're doing and things like that, and she's barely still at that stage of her exploring. So each child can be like difficult in their own ways. Or I had a child, when she first started coming, and she was like kicking and screaming for a couple of days before she even did anything, you know, and that's just really hard. Or some of them kids, they come in and they're like ready to go, where am I gonna go jump on the tables at?
Yes, and the slow to warm up children and infants, they're usually very clingy. Yeah. They start grabbing onto you, and yeah, they want to be close to a teacher even more so than the other children.
And I feel like that's always hard too, like as a teacher, because we kind of know what we should do and how to talk to the children depending on their temperament, but I feel like it's hard with the parents because they don't know sometimes I feel bad because you have a slow to warm up child and the parent is very strong personality.
And they don't understand it.
Yeah, that you need to kind of bring down the way you speak to your child,
Right.
because they're a slow to warm up child, so they need something different.
They're a little more sensitive.
Yes.
So you have to approach with a delicate voice, a delicate words, because they're going to be easily shy. And so you can...
And startled.
Yeah, startled, shy. You want to make sure that everything is calm with them when you're approaching. You don't want to bring too much energy because they're going to be like, nope, that's too much for me.
Yeah, like I think we mentioned in one of the podcasts that as teachers and even parents, we have to adapt to the child.
Yes. And temperament really helps. Understanding which approach works best for that child is really going to set you up for success. And those are things that you can see. We could probably put that on Patreon too with this podcast.
Yeah, let us know if you want more information on that. I know we're only saying a snippet. You're probably a little bit still confused about it. Let us know if you want more information, and we definitely could talk about that and what that looks like and what you can do with the different types of temperament children that you have.
Yes, and I mean that could be a whole podcast on its own. It's a very strong topic, not just with infants, but throughout the whole range, because there's a lot of different strategies and adaptations that come as they get older, because they get more settled into that temperament style. And I'm gonna say, I know it might sound a little silly, but if you really want to know more about it, watch the movies Inside Out 1 and Inside Out 2 because you'll start to realize the temperament and all the different emotions that children are feeling. Because sometimes as adults we forget about it.
Yeah.
So what is the caregiver's role, and why am I saying caregiver when it comes to infants? And it's because they do need so much more care. Yes, we're teachers, but a lot of what we're teaching is within that daily routine. It's embedded in there. The feeding is part of their routine, and that's very important for their bodies at that moment, especially in the infant room, because they're eating like all day long, every 2 hours.
Yeah.
It's the food, and then it's the bottle, and then it's nap time, and then it's change time, and you just keep going around and around and around and around. So all of that interaction is caring for the child, meeting their individual needs. And I don't want to go too far into the theories with that, but it is helping them feel more secure and knowing that their needs are going to be met, and that the adult in there is going to help them, and they're listening to them, and they're watching them and giving them that care that they need. So that's why I really refer to caregiving, because that is essential to the role of working with infants. You have to have that nurturing type of personality, because it does drain you, and it is a lot to give all of that to 8 children or 12 children for 5 days a week. The children are going to need physical touch. It's not going to work like when you're with dogs and you're just pointing and talking to them. You want to make sure that you are physically holding them and embracing them and hugging them. They need that physical contact. And they also are going to need close proximity, like we were talking about before. It's really hard when teachers move in and out of the classroom because they want to go with you. The infants are tracking you. A lot of times they're tracking your voice by turning your head if they're little, or they're trying to watch you. I'm really curious to see what some of those studies are going to come out after COVID, because we had to wear that mask. And so much of the development is understanding our facial expressions. That includes our mouth. Yes, they were able to see our eyes, but our mouth gives a lot of our expressions. And that's really important for the children to understand different feelings.
In the classroom, like sometimes I notice that the children they start getting anxious, or like if a teacher or someone comes in the classroom and just walking by them, they just stop crying. Stop crying, continue playing, because they need, like you said, that close proximity to us and feel comfort. And a strange person coming in, they're going to be freaked out, and just letting them know and giving them a hug and be like, it's okay, what I mean? It calms them.
So when really thinking of the caregiving role, it comes down to 3 R's that are easy to remember, which is respectfulness, responsiveness, and reciprocal. But I like to add in a fourth, which is reflection, because it's different with each child. So you want to make sure that you're checking in with the families. And I say family because not only with the child, but also with the parents. Because those 3 R's not only apply to the child, but they also apply to the families as well, the parents. It makes such a big difference if you can be on a positive level with the parents and you have this transparency of open communication. Both of you can effectively support the children, and you end up respecting each other's opinions, because parents are the child's first teacher. And we're just trying to support the learning the best of our ability as educators. And when we are working with the children, it's caring for their child at that moment, and there needs to be a good balance of it, because it takes a village. It's not all on one person, and it shouldn't be all on one person.
Yeah.
One thing I want to add is crying is communication. We kind of touched on it a few times already, but it is the worst thing for me. And I'm gonna say, I've heard it in the classroom where they say, "Oh my God, you cry too much," or "hush," or "shush." No, that is not appropriate for teachers to do, because the child is not just crying because they want to cry. There is a need that is not being met. So it's important for the teachers in the classroom to realize that if the child is making an unpleasant sound, that's because they're not feeling pleasant within themselves. And it's our jobs to figure out why they are not happy in this moment. Is it that they need to move position? Is it because they're sleepy? Is it because their diaper's not on right, or there's something in it? Or is it because they're hungry, thirsty? There's a lot of factors that can go in. And it could be simply that it's too bright today and we need to turn the lights down. Or it's too loud outside. Or it's too hot. Or it's too cold. They can't tell us because they don't have the words yet. And they don't even understand what it is that they're feeling. They just know that they're not feeling what they need to feel at that moment.
And we did want to touch on what you can do in the classroom, what is important, how to interact with a baby.
Yes. And handling with care. Do not pull on a toddler's arm. Oof, that's like nails on a chalkboard for me when I see that. I'm like, delicate, be gentle. Hold them from the waist, but even before that, respectfulness. You need to make sure that you make eye contact with them. You're not coming from the back. You say, "Adriana, can I pick you up? Or can I have your hand? Hold my hand, please." Address them by their name. And you'd be surprised how many teachers do not do that one single step. They're just like, "Come here." Or sometimes they don't even say, "Come here." They just scoop them up. And the poor child's like, "Whoa, where am I going?" And I see this little head roll of the babies all the time. And it's like, poor thing, he just got startled. I'm like, no, don't just scoop up the baby. It is a living child. Make eye contact. Talk to them. Tell them what you're about to do before you do it. Give them a moment to process it before you just pick them up. Body language, you want to make sure that you are reading that, because that can be insightful in what they're feeling. If they're happy, a lot of times they'll kick their legs, or they'll kind of tilt their head. Or if they're searching for their caregiver and you're talking to them but you don't see them directly, you'll see them kind of like tracking your voice with their head. Those are all positive body languages. You want to be able to see that. But if they're like shaking, then that's a negative body language. They're probably frustrated or fatigued at that moment, and you don't want them to be in that state for too long.
It's even important for teachers, parents, to have a certain body language, because if you're anxious about something, they're probably going to feel it and they're going to be anxious. Yes. If you're going to be hectic around the classroom, like, "Oh my gosh, I need to do this, I need to do that," they are probably going to be doing the same because they feel it.
Yeah. Yes, they're very, very sensitive to the tone of voice and to the energy in the room, because they're trying to figure out their world around them. And everything is new. So they pick up on all these different things. Their senses are heightened. And we want to make sure that we are mindful of that when we go in there to help minimize any kind of oversensory that they may be feeling. As I mentioned before, facial expressions, you want to make sure that you're not, even though you may be stressed from whatever external factors, that you're not bringing it into the classroom, because they will see it on the face.
Yeah.
And they will feel that you're not yourself. And I'm also going to say, if you're feeling sick, you should not be in the classroom.
Yeah.
I think we might have mentioned that
Yeah.
in another podcast, but yes, I mean, we don't want the kids coming to the classroom when they're sick. So by the same token, teachers should not be coming in to the classroom when they're sick. We need our space too when we're not feeling well, and it's because we are a little more on edge and we don't have our full energy to care for the children effectively the way that we want to. And when we're pushing ourselves like that, the kids are going to feel it, and sometimes even the parents will notice.
Yeah.
Making eye contact, getting down to their level, paying attention to the sounds. If you're playing soft music, that's fine. You don't want to play rock music with the baby's classroom. But if you're playing like classical music or some classroom appropriate music, that's okay. And sometimes it does kind of help. You do want to sing with the children. That could incorporate language and literacy with them. And it also can help the attachment between the child and you, because you're interacting with them, and they more than likely will make eye contact and will be watching you and smiling.
Yeah, and I think it's important. This is what I learned in one of my classes, and what I could see from experience is making sure like that close proximity with because their vision is not as clear as a baby, so it's good to like be showing them pictures close to their eyes or being close to their face and showing your facial expressions and smiling and things like that and laughing to help with their interactions and learning.
Yes, and with infants you want to have some things that are black and white, not too overly colorful. You want to keep it mild because, again, like I said, their senses are sharp and it could be a little too much for them. We can put some resources in there to support some of those. If you have any questions, please put it in the chat.
If you want any ideas of what activities you can do with your infants, let us know, and we definitely can let you guys know, and maybe we could talk to you guys more about that.
There is one little thing I want to touch on too, is when you're in an infant class, the curriculum is a lot more flexible. It's really more about the routine and the individual attention versus a set schedule for the children, because they're all on their own schedule. Some are going to nap at different times, others are going to be eating. A lot of times they come in at different times as well. They're really on their own schedule. So when you're developing a curriculum for the infants, you want to keep in mind that flexibility and not be so structured as you would with the preschool or even the toddlers, because they're on their own. And it's really about making sure that they're comfortable in what they need more than what they're going to learn, because they're going to learn anyway. Like I mentioned before, you could be singing while you're changing their diaper, you could be singing with them while they're eating their food, you could be singing with them while they're just sitting on the carpet. They're gonna get that. It doesn't have to be at a specific time, so do not try and do a circle time with the infants. You could do a little felt story with a group of them that are awake. That's fine. It could be about maybe 5 minutes at the most, and if there's 2 that are paying attention and the rest of the class are not, it's successful. That's all you need for an infant class. And honestly, all you need is 1. If one is interested in one book, that's fine. Then another teacher could be reading another book with another child. You want to go on the infant's cues. Just thinking about those expectations, a lot of times teachers get frustrated because they want to hold on to a lesson plan. Yes, you do develop a lesson plan and you're eventually going to read that book to a child, but it doesn't have to be in a large group, and it shouldn't be in a large group because that's just not age appropriate. even if you have different curriculums, that part doesn't change. You want to make sure that it's about the individual child with the infants. So I just want to say to all the teachers out there, don't put too much pressure on yourself about trying to be rigid with a lesson plan, because you will stress yourself out with the infants. Just let it be. Follow their cues, make sure you're interacting and engaging with them and meeting their needs. That's all that's needed. Thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed our podcast, part 1 and part 2 of infant care. Obviously there are other things that we can talk about.
Yeah.
We went into a few other topics, and we know we could explore deeper, like the brain development or the brain set research or ASQs and temperaments. So please let us know if you'd like to hear about those, and we can always design a podcast to go deeper into those topics.
Stay enchanted by education.